I hope you have seen the previous lesson, which is understandable. If you have any doubt, you can send me the question in the comment section. Okay, let's get into this chapter. So, movement. So, what is mean by movement? So, movement is nothing but moving a part of a body. So, that is what we call it as movement. That means maybe I'm moving my hand, I'm moving my fingers in my hand, or I'm moving my leg alone, or I am moving my head alone. So I'm moving a part of my body, that is called as movement. So what is locomotion? So locomotion is nothing but changing your body position. So changing your body position from one place to another. So your whole body is moving from one place to another, that is called as locomotion. So this two kind of movements, I mean change in position part of your body is movement, and changing the whole of your body from one place to another is called locomotion. So okay, with this two kind of changing in position only we are doing with the help of our body skeletal system. So that is what we are going to see in this lesson. Okay, so we can see some other movements that happens in the animals and also in the plants. So I think you know this plant, mimosa. Mimosa is a plant, commonly we call it as the touch me not plant. So that will be moving based on the response to stimuli, right? So it is responding to the stimuli. When we touch it, its leaflets will start closing, right? So this is also a different kind of movement you can see in the plants. So let's get into the detail part. Okay, so coming to the skeletal system. See here, as I said, the movement of your part of the body or the whole body happens with the help of our skeletal system. So before entering into the skeletal system, you should know there are two types of skeletal system, exoskeleton and endoskeleton. So what is exoskeleton? Exo means out, that is outside, exit, all this and all will tell it as out, right? So the presence of the skeleton in the outside of the body. So you can find few kind of exoskeletons in various animals. For example, you can take the shell of a snail or a tortoise, where the body is present internal but the skeleton is outside. So what is the purpose of the skeleton? It is to protect the internal body. Usually we say the skeleton which is present inside the body is giving a supporting structure to our body, right? So examples are animals and human beings, birds, fishes. You can take any of the endoskeleton where the skeleton is present internally inside our body, giving us a structure and also support us to do some movement or locomotion. Okay, so these are the two kinds of exoskeleton and endoskeleton. Exo means the skeleton will present in the outside of the body, and endo means it is inside the body. Fine. Okay, now we'll go on to the human skeletal system. Okay, so the human skeletal system is the one which you can see as an endoskeleton. Okay, so it is like a endoskeleton. So how many bones we have? We have 206 bones, and that bones are together inside our body by various kind of attachments. So that we will be seeing in the later portions. First, you know how many bones are there. So an adult will be having 206 bones. But what about the child which born, newborn? So newborn child will be having 300 bones. So what happens to this 300 bones? How it becomes 206 bones? So actually the baby when it born from the womb of the mother, it should be very flexible. So if it is having a rigid bones, it cannot come out, right? So during the delivery time it won't be coming out. If it is flexible, it cannot be inside the womb. So this 300 bones later, when they are growing into an adult by the age of 1, it will start uh, ossification. So during ossification, the bones fuse together to create an adult skeleton. So it will fuse each other, and that will form the adult skeleton. So this is how the 300 bones are converted into 206 bones. Okay, so the child need to stay healthy and active to fuse this bones. For the bones to properly fuse, they should be very healthy and active. They should get good nutritions. So calcium rich food they have to take, as well as the vitamin D, that also should be properly present in their body, because vitamin D is the one which controls how the body uses the calcium. So without the sunlight, the body won't be able to build up this healthy and strong bone. So sunlight helps our body to make the vitamin D in our body. Okay, so both this vitamin D and the calcium are very helpful for making the child to be a healthy and having strong bones. Okay, so this is how this 300 bones has been converted into 206 bones. And how many percentage of the calcium is present in our body? That is, in the bone and the teeth, it contains 99 percentage of the calcium. Okay, so now we'll see the functions of the skeletal system. What are the functions? Already we have seen. It gives us the shape and support. It gives a proper shape to our body. So thereby it is supporting us to do our works, right? Without the support of the skeletal system, you cannot stand upright, right? Okay, the second point is the movement. With the help of the skeletal system only, we are moving our various parts of the body. Next, protection. So how it is involved in protection? So I hope you all know that the skull which is present in our head protects our brain. Likewise, the ribs protects the heart and lungs, right? So where the lungs and the heart are present inside our ribs, so thereby it is a very soft tissue compared to the other organs, lungs and heart, which has been protected under this ribs. So it involves in protection. Likewise, the fourth function of the skeletal system is the formation of blood cells. So this you might have learned in your lower classes also. The bone marrow, which is a spongy mass which has been present in the bones, inside the bones, are responsible for the formation of blood cells. So it protects us from various diseases which is formed inside the bones. Next one, last one is the muscle attachment. So the bones of the skeleton provide attachment for the muscles of the body. So you can imagine whether our bones and the muscles are separately present, so we cannot be able to move or do our works, right? So as the muscles are attached to the bones, it supports the skeletal system, and also muscle is getting attached with the bone only gives us the shape. So this also done by the skeletal system. The next one we are going to see one by one from the skeletal system. The first one we are going to see is the skull. So as shown in the given picture, you can see that the skull is holding the various parts present in our face. What we are seeing, the face is the frontal part. Okay, so the top part we have the skull. So actually the skull is comprised of bones of the face and the head. Okay, so it contains various holes. You can see there is a hole here and there is a hole here. So here also we have a hole. So these are the parts where our sensory organs, eye is located, nose are located, and also the ear is located. Okay. Okay, so the movement of this skull you can find only in the lower jaw. You can see lots of sutures present here and there, like this in our skull, but it is the joint which is immovable. The only joint which is movable is our lower jaw. So this helps us to chew the food and we are able to talk. Okay, and coming to the function of this skull, what is the function of the skull? You all know that it protects the brain and it is very important organ for our body which controls the whole body, right? And also it bears the lower jaw which helps us to chew the food, okay, and also help us to talk, sing, whatever, right? So the skull protects and supports the sensory organs, eye, nose and tongue. Let's see the parts of the skull. So these are the parts of the skull. So here you can have the frontal bone, right? So this is the frontal bone, and as I said, the joints present in the skull, we call it as the sutures, which is immovable one, and the bone which you find in your nose part, that is the nasal bone, and the eye where it is situated in the skull, that bone is called as lacrimal bone, and the upper jaw is called as maxilla and the lower jaw is called as mandible. So if a question is asked about what is the part which is movable in the skull, so you need to know not only the lower jaw, its medical term mandible, okay. And there is a brain case, there is a box like structure present inside this part of our skull, that we call it as cranium, which is called as the brain case, okay. That inside that only our brain is present. Okay, now we'll move on to the backbone, that we call it as the spine or vertebral column. So as shown in the picture, this is the structure of this backbone. So here we are dividing the structure of the backbone into 4 parts, 4 to 5 parts, important parts. The cervical vertebrae, which is situated in the neck region. So how many bones are there? That is C1 to C7. So 7 totally. And in thoracic vertebrae, which is present in our chest region, that it has T1 to T12. And the lumbar region, that is in our belly region, pelvic region, that we call it as lumbar. As it is lumbar, it is L1 to L5. And below the lumbar region, we have the hip region, that is called as sacrum. And the end of the vertebrae is called as coccus, that is called as the tail region. So these are the parts of our vertebral column. The animals which possess this vertebral column, backbone, we call it as vertebrae, and which doesn't possess, we call it as invertebrate, as you can see in many insects, starfish, earthworms and other worms. Okay, so how this backbone has been formed? So it starts from the base of the skull to the lower back of our human body. Till that we have this backbone. This vertebral column is formed by 33 serially arranged units, that is what we call it as vertebrae. So totally we have 33 serially arranged units. So they are dorsally placed. This joint show very slight movement only. It is because of this joint that we are able to bend and twist our backbone. So each of this vertebrae in center as a hole. In center they have a hole. Okay. So through that only the spinal cord is passing. Okay. So first 24 vertebrae are serially joined end to end. So for joining this end to end, there is a pad of elastic cartilage. So these are called as intervertebral disc. So that particular elastic cartilage, we call it as invertebral intervertebral discs. Okay, so because inter means in between, so in between the vertebrae there is a disc that is called as the elastic cartilage, so we call it as intervertebral disc. Coming to the function of the backbone, the function of backbone is to protect the spinal cord, which is the delicate organ of our body, right? Yes. So the backbone carries the weight of the body during standing and moving position. So imagine if you have any problem in this lumbar region or in the thoracic region or in the cervical region, you always say neck pain, shoulder pain or back pain, hip pain, like this. So this is because of the damage of the nerves or the disc present in between this vertebrae in this particular region. So these are the reasons why we get the pain in that particular region. So as it is carrying the whole body weight when you are standing or doing any movement, these are the reason why we get pain there in that particular region. Okay, and this vertebrae also involved in the breathing and hearing. So how we can say this breathing and hearing are done with this? So ribs takes part in breathing mechanism of the body, is attached to this vertebrae in the back side, and the bones of the ear take part in hearing mechanism also. Okay, so these are the importance of this vertebral column. So you have any doubt in this, you can send me the question in the comment box. So functions of skeletal system also include the breathing and hearing. Fine. So we can say that the skeletal system has been divided into two parts. So the skeletal system, as I said, has been divided into two parts, that is the axial skeleton and the appendicular skeleton. So what we have seen before, the skull and the vertebral column, which is coming under the axial skeleton, and also the sternum, this part, the sternum, we also called it as the chest bone, and the rib present in the thoracic cavity all comes under the axial skeleton. And the remaining parts like this arm, okay, and this clavicle and scapula. Scapula is nothing but your shoulder blade present in your back of your shoulder. Okay, so this and all, pelvic girdle and pectoral girdle, all this comes under the appendicular skeleton part. Okay, now we will learn the various parts present in our skeletal system. Skull, you all know. Mandible is nothing but the lower part of your jaw, that is your lower jaw. Clavicle is nothing but your collarbone. Okay, so that is present in your down to your neck, and the scapula is nothing but your shoulder blade. Okay, and the humerus is the bone present in your forearm, and in your hind arm you are having two kinds of bone, that is ulna and radius, and the carpals are present in your wrist part, followed by the metacarpals, and the end of the metacarpals is called as phalanges. And the ribs, you all know, we have 12 pairs of ribs. Anyhow, we are going to see it in detail. And sternum is the chest bone, we call it as the chest bone, and spine is nothing but your vertebrae, and pelvis is your hip bone. Sacrum we have seen just now, which is next to the lumbar region, and which will end up in the tail region, coccyx. And coming to the leg part, your forelimbs, that is the thigh bone, is called as the femur. Femur is the thigh bone, which is considered as the strongest and the longest bone of your body, and patella is the kneecap. So we have common names and also the scientific names. Please remember all this too. And coming to your hind limbs, again you have two kinds of bones in the hind limbs, that is the strongest one and the big one is the tibia. This one is the tibia, and next to the tibia you have a small thin bone, a long bone only, but it is thinner than the tibia, that is fibula. And this will end up in the ankle joint. So ankle joint is the made up of tarsals. Again, please compare this ankle joint and the wrist of your hand is made up of carpals, and ankle joint of your foot is made up of tarsals. Followed by tarsal is the metatarsal, and the end of your metatarsal is your fingers of your foot, that is again called as phalanges, as in your fingers. Okay, so these are very important parts you need to remember. We can end up this part 1 of body movements lesson with the rib cage. Okay, so we have completed with the axial skeleton in this part. Okay, so the rib cage, why we are calling it as rib cage? It looks like a cage. The ribs are very thin, flat, curved bones which look like a protective cage, and it is called as so because it protects the upper part of your body organs like lung and the heart. Okay, so it is called as rib cage. It consists of 24 bones, that is 12 pairs in either side, left and right. So it is attached to the backbone in the back side and to the front in the sternum or breastbone. So breastbone is a flat bone. You can see in the given picture, right? Okay, so usually we have 12 pairs I said, right? In that only the first 1 to 7 are true ribs because it is attached to the sternum in the front part. But the 8th, 9th and 10th pair of the ribs are called as false ribs because it is attached indirectly to the breastbone, not directly attached. Likewise, the last pair 11, 12 is not attached because their anterior ends are not attached either to the breastbone in the front of the cartilage of another rib. So it is not attached at all. You can see it in the given picture. See here. So you can see it. The true ribs are attached to the sternum, but the false ribs are not attached directly to the sternum, it is indirectly attached. And the last two bones, that is the two pairs 11th and 12th, not attached to any of this, it is like a floating, so it is called as floating ribs. 11, 12 is called as floating ribs, and 8, 9, 10 is called as false rib, and true ribs are nothing but the 1 to 7 pair of the ribs. Fine. Okay, functions of this ribs. So it is nothing but to protect the important internal organs like heart and lungs, and also in the lower part of the body, that means near the thoracic cavity in the back side. So it protects your front, it protects your stomach, and in the back side it protects your kidney. And these ribs also provide the attachment of muscles concerned with your respiratory mechanism. So below the rib here, this part, you have a thin muscular sheet called diaphragm. Okay, so this diaphragm helps us in the movement of the lungs by moving upward during exhalation, moving downward during inhalation. Okay, so the 12 pairs of the rib most of the people have, but some may have 13th also. So 1% of the people are discovered with 13th pair of rib, so which is called as the extra rib or cervical rib. Okay, that's all about the axial skeleton. So far we have learned, that is the skull, vertebral column and the rib cage. We'll see part 2 video of body movements about the appendicular skeleton. Any doubts, you can send me your questions and doubts in the comment section. Thank you all. Meet you soon. Bye.